I call David Shearer.
Sir, keeping on with the topic of foreign affairs, sir, the government has lost its way in this particular area. And I look, sir, at the comments that were made by John Key just a few weeks ago about a deployment to Iraq, and he mentioned human rights. And I was surprised because I'd never heard him mention human rights before. So I went to the parliamentary library and I said, how often has John Key mentioned human rights in the course of his time in Parliament? Once other than questions, just the once when he moved against Zimbabwe back in 2007. A big call, a very big call. But, sir, not really keeping up with what he was claiming and accusing about going into Iraq. And yet, sir, here we are with him about to go into Saudi Arabia, where human rights are called discrepancies. Now, sir, I'm in favour of a free trade agreement with Saudi Arabia and the Gulf states, but it is our duty and our obligation with the treaties and the various agreements that we have signed up to under international law to make sure that we mention and we take that to the table as well. The people of New Zealand are certainly not convinced that we are going into Iraq because of human rights. 50% of them believe we're going there simply because our mates have asked us to, and John Key can't say no, like a lot of other things that he doesn't say or obliged to say no to either. Mr McCulley, sir, was asked yesterday about Indonesia and the executions. Do we support executions? No, of course we don't here in New Zealand. But here's what he had to say about executions. He said, it's a very concerning situation and we will have something formal to say about it. When will he say that? When the two people accused are dead? When they have been executed? Probably. In Nepal, he said, with regard to our group going off to help, our USARs going off to help, New Zealand stands ready. Great, except that everybody else left and went there and we were still standing ready. Unfortunately, for the good people and the experience that they hold from dealing with Christchurch, they didn't get to go to Nepal. I believe that as a result of that, we weren't able to share our expertise. And why? Because we've sat there and dithered. In Vanuatu, Cyclone Pam hit Vanuatu on the 13th of March. On the 23rd of March, 10 days later, we sent our ship. Australia had already sent a ship. Australia had got their flights into Vanuatu before us. We know every year that cyclones and earthquakes are something that is likely to occur somewhere throughout the world, and yet we don't have the ability to operate as quickly as other countries in the world. It's not about a race, it's about getting our act together so that we are able to be down there on the ground doing the job that we know we are good at. And as a result, the people who are in harm's way will be able to benefit. We need to pre-position, we need to act, we need to stop dithering, we need to take a firm stance on the issues that this government is not taking a firm stance on. Human rights is one of them. John Key needs to mention human rights more than just when he's about to send troops off to Iraq and on an unpopular deployment because he's trying to please his mates. And when it comes to TPP, sir, we have the Prince of Arrogance himself, Mr. Tim Grocer, swanning around saying, I don't need to talk to the country. I don't need to discuss this with anybody else because I know everything there is to know about trade and I can make that decision on everybody's behalf. Wrong, Mr. Grocer. You do have an obligation. You do have an obligation to talk to the rest of the country. You do have an obligation to sit down with civil society and actually explain what it is that we're getting ourselves into. Sir, New Zealand used to stand for something, and it stands for arrogance, and it stands for dithering now.
Mr Speaker.
The Honourable Todd McLean.
Mr Chair, thank you very much, and I